Today we're talking about two real tales of survival lost to the depths. Stories that will make you think twice before stepping into the unknown. One man ventured into a twisting underwater labyrinth, only to find the cave had its own plans for him. In the second, a simple field trip turned into a race against time, with a single misstep sending a life spiraling into darkness. These aren't just accidents, they're moments when panic takes over, when time slows, and when the cave itself becomes a force you can't escape. As always, viewers' discretion is advised. Florida. A quiet, humid morning. The trees around Ginny Springs sway gently in the breeze. Sunlight flickers through Spanish moss. The water, crystal clear, calm, looks like glass. But underneath that surface hides a world few people ever see. It's called the Devil's Spring System, a name that sounds like a warning. And maybe it is. This hidden labyrinth begins at Ginny Springs, a popular freshwater paradise in the heart of Florida. Tourists come to swim, snorkel, float on tubes, but just beneath them, tunnels twist through limestone like an underground puzzle. At the surface, the water is warm, 72 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, inviting and peaceful. But below, that warmth fades, and the deeper you go, the darker it gets. The system is made up of 3 connected springs. Little Devil, a tight vertical crack in the earth, just 4 feet wide, dropping 50 feet down into the rock. At the bottom, 2 shallow caves, barely big enough to turn around. The other 2 springs, Devil's Eye and Devil's Ear, are connected underwater. They lead to secret cave passages that stretch for over 30,000 feet. That's about the same as 250 basketball courts in a row. It's a place where only trained cave divers are allowed. The walls are narrow, the turns are sharp, and the current never stops pulling. Devil's Ear is the largest and most dangerous of all. A roaring vent near the Santa Fe River, pumping out 30 million gallons of water every day. That's strong enough to shove a diver off course fast. Beneath Devil's Eye, there's a connection called the Tight Tunnel, a squeeze passage that leads into Devil's Ear. The pressure in this tunnel is real. Divers push against the flow, inch by inch, holding onto limestone ridges, heartbeats rising with every pull. And that's where this story begins. 5 young men stand at the edge of the spring. Their gear is lined up neatly on the limestone ledge. Steel tanks, masks, flippers, backup lights. They move with quiet focus, adjusting straps, checking oxygen levels, going over hand signals. Walter and Oliver Smith brothers stand side by side. This would be their 3rd dive at Devil's Spring. They're both certified, both experienced, but different in all the ways that matter. Walter, the younger one, is the kind of guy who craves adrenaline. Hiking, cliff diving, deep water. If there's a thrill, he's chasing it. Oliver, his older brother, is cautious, calm, analytical. He double-checks every clip, every gauge. Their team, Group A, includes their friend Sam. Nearby, Dave and William form Group B. 2 teams, 2 short routes, nothing risky. That was the plan. As they prepare for the dive, another group appears across the water, more diverse, talking about a longer route toward a part of the cave called Cornflakes. It's a formation 500 feet in, farther than the brothers had planned to go. The other group isn't going all the way, just halfway in before turning back. Still, it plants a seed in Walter's mind, and something changes. Standing at the water's edge, mask in hand, Walter stares into the spring's mouth. He's silent, focused, but something is pulling at him. He wants to go deeper, farther than the plan, maybe even alone. Oliver notices the shift immediately. He steps closer, his voice tight. "Let's stick together. Don't try anything solo." Walter looks at him. No words. Just a firm nod that doesn't match the fire in his eyes. The others don't know it yet, but Walter has already made up his mind. And once they descend, nothing will go the way they expected. Except for Walter, who chose to dive solo, the rest of the group split into 2 teams. They began their descent through Devil's Eye, a round, clear water opening surrounded by limestone ledges. This entry point was chosen for a reason. It was quicker and more direct. Just nearby was Devil's Ear, another entrance often used for diver training or to switch things up. But in reality, it didn't matter much. Both entrances connect underwater shortly after, inside a large, open tunnel called the Gallery. Once underwater, the divers moved slowly, adjusting their buoyancy as they followed the main guideline. Visibility was excellent. Light from their torches flickered along the sandy floor and smooth, pale walls. The cold water pressed gently against their suits, steady and calm. After a few minutes of careful finning, they reached the gallery. It was like swimming through a wide underwater hallway. The passage stretched forward in a mostly straight line, and bubbles rose quietly to the limestone ceiling above. Running alongside the gallery was a cluster of small, connected tunnels called the catacombs. These were different from the main path. There were no permanent guidelines inside. That was intentional. These tunnels were often used for practice, places where instructors taught new divers how to use reels and lay temporary lines. But today, the group didn't enter the catacombs. They stayed on course. At the far end of the gallery, the passage made a sudden, sharp turn to the right. This was the lips. It wasn't a tight squeeze, but it did require precision. Each diver had to pass through carefully, keeping their gear close to their bodies to avoid touching the rock walls. Their fins moved gently, slowly to keep the silt from clouding the water. Once through, the tunnel opened into a spacious underwater room. The lights from their helmets revealed wide, pale rock surfaces and faint ripples in the sandy bottom. On the opposite side of the chamber was a small opening, the keyhole. The guideline passed through it. As they moved forward, the depth increased. From about 70 feet, they descended to 90 feet. The pressure shifted slightly in their ears. Each diver equalized as they continued forward, scanning the quiet beauty of the cave around them. They paused there for a while, hovering in the still water, taking in the view. It was peaceful and otherworldly. Nothing but rock, water, and silence. Then came time to return. Oliver turned and signaled Walter, flashing his light in short bursts, asking him to join the group for the exit. But Walter didn't respond. His focus was fixed ahead, toward a different section known as cornflakes. Even though the others encouraged him to come back with them, Walter made it clear he wanted to keep going. Reluctantly, they left him behind, but not without a warning. Don't stay down too long. Now alone, Walter adjusted his position and turned toward cornflakes. This area was known for its twisty, short paths, and the limestone here had a flaky texture, almost like thin cereal layers clinging to the walls. The passage curved and narrowed, and Walter moved with care, guiding himself along the line, watching his depth and air. He swam steadily forward, eventually reaching a point that was 500 feet on the opposite side of the cornflake section. Even then, he didn't stop. He pushed onward. Finally, the tunnel opened into a chamber called the junction room. Inside the junction room, the cave branched off in multiple directions. Narrow tunnels led deeper into the darkness, like veins spreading through the rock. Walter, feeling the pull of adventure, decided to explore one of these side passages. He swam to the entrance of a narrow tunnel, its walls smooth and dark, and placed a small marker on the side, a wooden clothespin wedged into a crack in the rock. The idea was simple, a marker to help him remember which path he had taken so he could find his way back. But, as it often happens in caves, things didn't go as planned. The clothespin wasn't secured tightly. As Walter swam deeper into the tunnel, it fell off. Unseen in the dark, the marker drifted away, unnoticed until it was too late. Walter swam on, the water flowing past him in a steady current, cool and calm. The tunnel was narrow and he had to move slowly, making sure his equipment didn't scrape against the walls. He swam for a short distance before deciding to turn around and head back. But when he tried to find the clothespin, he couldn't. His eyes scanned the rock walls, the shifting light from his flashlight flickering across the stone, but there was no marker to be found. In the growing confusion, Walter made a critical mistake. He followed the wrong guideline. Instead of turning toward the exit, he swam down an entirely different path. The current shifted slightly as he moved deeper, pulling him into a tunnel that veered off from his intended course. Walter swam for about 50 feet before realizing his mistake. The water felt different now, colder with a slight pull toward the deeper sections of the cave. His heart began to race, but he turned around quickly, the weight of his gear pressing heavily on him as he changed direction. But his journey in the wrong direction had taken its toll. Time was passing. The dive had already consumed more air than expected, and with each minute, Walter's tank was running lower. The thought of running out of air gnawed at him. The calmness of the cave now felt oppressive, like the stone walls were closing in. Back on the surface, the others, Oliver and the team, were starting to grow concerned. The initial excitement of the dive had worn off, and the quiet began to settle into worry. They'd been up for nearly 2 hours. Oliver kept glancing at the entrance of the cave, his eyes scanning for any sign of Walter. The other group, who had initially influenced Walter to push deeper into the cave, had already resurfaced. That only heightened their concern. Walter should have been back by now. Oliver exchanged looks with the others, his brow furrowing in frustration and concern. He reached for the radio, calling out for help. They needed to contact authorities. They needed to act fast. But as the minutes ticked by, their nerves grew tighter. Rescue divers were already on their way. but the minutes felt like hours. The wait for help, though necessary, only seemed to stretch further into the growing dark. Oliver's mind raced as he struggled to shake the growing knot of anxiety. His chest tightened with worry as he turned to Dave, his voice shaking. "We have to go back. We have to find him." Without hesitation, the two of them suited up again, preparing to dive back into the depths of the cave. The air was heavy with the weight of the situation, the uncertainty clawing at them with each passing second. Oliver's hands trembled as he adjusted his mask, but he didn't speak. His focus was consumed by the need to find his brother. They entered the water, their movements quiet in the calm of the spring. The dive felt different now, as if the weight of the cave itself was pressing down on them, urging them deeper. They swam in silence, pushing forward, their eyes scanning the dark tunnel ahead. After swimming about 45 feet, the beam of Oliver's flashlight flickered across something in the distance. Something still, lifeless. Walter's body, floating in the water, lifeless and cold. The sight hit like a punch to the gut. Oliver froze, his heart stopping for a beat. The world seemed to blur around him, the reality of the situation crashing in like a wave. His brother, his younger brother, was gone. Oliver's hand trembled as he reached out, but it didn't feel real. Dave saw the shock in Oliver's eyes and quickly swam over, grabbing Oliver's arm. His grip was firm, steady, something that Oliver needed right then. "We need to get out, Oliver, come on." Oliver couldn't speak. He couldn't move at first, his mind trying to process the reality of what he was seeing. But the darkness of the cave, the cold water, the overwhelming stillness, it all pressed in on him. Dave took hold of Oliver, helping him steady himself. Together they swam towards the exit, every stroke heavier than the last, as the water around them seemed to grow colder with each passing second. Oliver's mind filled with questions and regrets, but they needed to move. They couldn't stay in that place. By the time they reached the surface, 2 rescue divers had already arrived, the sound of their bubbles rising to meet them. Dave wasted no time and told them about the body. The rescue divers followed, and when they reached Walter's body, it was clear. His diving gear intact, his lifeless form suspended in the water. They quickly started the process of recovery. The weight of the moment was unbearable, but the job had to be done. Once Walter's body was safely brought to the surface, the recovery team turned to analyze the dive computer attached to his gear. They studied the data closely, piecing together the events that led to the tragedy. From the dive computer, they determined that Walter had gone far too deep into the cave, reaching more than 500 feet inside the junction room. The plan, which had seemed manageable at first, had become a maze of wrong turns and miscalculations. The lead diver in the recovery team gathered the information and offered a few reasons that likely led to the accident. First, Walter's dive plan had been too complicated, too many twists and turns, making it easy to get disoriented and lost. Second, Walter had ventured into a part of the cave he hadn't explored before, a place unfamiliar and filled with danger. And lastly, the most critical mistake, Walter hadn't managed his air supply properly. His tank, once full, had been drained over the course of his detour, leaving him with little to no air when he needed it most. All of these factors, the complicated dive plan, the unfamiliar territory, and the air management failure, had combined to create the tragic outcome. But not all cave incidents happen with experienced divers. Sometimes it's just a group of teenagers on a field trip expecting adventure, not danger. It was just days before Christmas in 2002 when 3 teenage girls, Kylie, Megan, and Kerr, sat in a group home in Cedar City, Utah, waiting for a special announcement. Their counselor smiled and told them something exciting. They were going on a field trip on Christmas Eve. Field trips were common at this facility, which housed girls struggling with emotional, behavioral, and substance issues. But this trip felt different. Each girl had a story. Kylie stood out the most, quiet, with dirty blonde hair, glasses, and plain clothes that made her seem like a goody two-shoes. But beneath that calm surface, Kylie had a gift. She could make even the most broken girls laugh. Abandoned as a baby and later adopted by a wealthy family, Kylie had spiraled into drug use and partying in her teen years. Eventually, she ran away and ended up here, where she bonded closely with Megan and Kerr. When the destination was finally announced, Bloomington Cave, a dark, winding tunnel system in southern Utah, Kerr froze. She couldn't explain why, but she had a deep, uneasy feeling. She tried to warn the counselors, but they brushed it off. To the others, it sounded like an adventure. On the crisp morning of Christmas Eve, 2002, 5 counselors and 15 girls bundled into a large white van and set off down Interstate 15. The vehicle rumbled through the still, pale desert until it turned onto a long, unmarked dirt road, kicking up clouds of dust behind it. After nearly an hour and a half, they reached a barren stretch of land near Bloomington. The van rolled to a stop near what looked like nothing. There was no obvious cave, just a hole in the earth, like a wound in the desert floor. This was the south entrance of Bloomington Cave, hidden in plain sight, a shadowed crack left behind by blasting done years earlier. The counselors divided the girls into two tight-knit groups. Each line was carefully arranged like a human chain, a counselor at the front, 3 girls behind, another counselor, more girls, and so on, forming a human zipper. As they approached the entrance, the group had to duck low, then crawl, knees scraping against the gravel and hands catching on cold, sharp stone. The cave didn't welcome them. It swallowed them, one by one. Inside, the temperature dropped. The soft hum of the wind disappeared, replaced by echoes of movement, distant drips, and the rhythmic shuffle of crawling bodies. The cave twisted unpredictably. Some passages opened into low, tight corridors, others suddenly ballooned into open, eerie spaces. Loose boulders and sloped rock piles forced everyone to squeeze sideways, crouch, and shimmy through the maze. After another pause to reorganize, the counselors had the girls grab hands, linking them into a single line again for safety. Then came the real test, a narrow tunnel that forced them through single file, each girl inching forward in silence, their breathing loud in the closed space. They emerged into the big room, a towering natural chamber stretching wide and tall, with dripping stalactites hanging like stone teeth from the ceiling. The floor was scattered with huge boulders, some the size of refrigerators, others just small enough to trip on. But the natural beauty meant little to the girls. Their awe had turned into unease. What had started as excitement was now tightening into anxiety. The air felt heavy. Claustrophobia crept in like a shadow. Some whispered their fears, others clung to the line more tightly. Kylie and Megan were in the same group, holding hands so firmly their knuckles turned white. Megan suddenly noticed Kylie trembling. It shocked her. Kylie, the girl who made everyone laugh, who never showed fear, was scared, deeply scared. Her breathing quickened, her steps grew hesitant. Megan squeezed her hand, whispering that it was okay, that they'd get through it together. Kylie nodded silently, but her wide eyes said otherwise. And then it happened. For a single second, Megan let go of Kylie's hand. Just a moment, just long enough to adjust her footing. Suddenly, a sound tore through the silence. The unmistakable clatter of rock tumbling, panicked screaming, and then a sickening thud. Everything stopped. Megan spun around, heart pounding, expecting to see Kylie still holding her hand. But Kylie was gone. Panic surged through her as she scanned the darkness. All the headlamps and flashlights the group had were pointing toward Megan's direction. No one had seen where Kylie went. That's when someone noticed something horrifying. Just feet away from where they were standing, the rocky path abruptly ended in a steep drop. A jagged rock ledge plunged straight down, 150 feet into darkness. No warning, no guardrails, just a deadly void next to where they had all been walking blindly. Everyone froze. One of the counselors slowly pointed their flashlight down over the edge. There she was. Kylie's body lay crumpled on the jagged rock below, unmoving, her pale arms twisted in unnatural angles. The light glinted off the frame of her glasses, now askew on her face. Time seemed to stop. The only sound in the cave was the unsteady breathing of the girls and the drip, drip of water echoing from the ceiling above. Several counselors immediately broke from the line and began scrambling down the sharp, slanted terrain, their boots skidding on loose gravel and slick rock as they descended over 100 feet toward Kylie. Others turned their attention to the remaining girls, urgently but carefully guiding them back toward the entrance, whispering reassurances they didn't believe themselves. Someone radioed for help. By the time emergency responders arrived, it was already too late. The rescue men entered the cave swiftly, weaving through the narrow tunnels like they'd done it 100 times. But even they had to slow as they approached the ledge, then carefully made their descent. When they finally reached her, no one needed to say it aloud. One look at Kylie's motionless body, her skin pale, her limbs still, told them everything. She was gone. It took a trained search and rescue team the rest of the day to recover her body and bring her back through the same twisting cave passages she had entered just hours earlier with laughter and curiosity in her eyes. Back at the group home, the mood turned from confusion to sorrow and then eventually to outrage. Kylie's adoptive parents were devastated when they received the call, and while grief consumed them, it was soon followed by a need for answers. But when they looked to the group home for responsibility, they were met with denial. In a surprising and controversial statement, the group home director claimed no one was at fault. He told the Salt Lake Tribune that the medical examiner had privately informed him that Kylie's death was due to cardiac arrest, not the fall, that she would have died no matter where she was that day. But the official autopsy report told a different story. It listed liver lacerations and blunt force trauma from the fall as the cause of death, not a heart condition. The outrage only grew when more facts came to light. Of the 20 people inside the cave, they had only 8 light sources total. 5 belonged to the counselors, headlamps strapped to their foreheads, and just 3 handheld flashlights were passed around among 15 girls. That's a sixth of what experts recommend for a group of that size in a cave as dangerous as Bloomington. Moments before Kylie fell, visibility was nearly zero. The girls had resorted to feeling their way forward with their feet, carefully testing each step for solid ground. In that darkness, one misstep was all it took, whether she stumbled or simply lost her footing. The truth is clear. If the cave had been better lit, if the group had been better prepared, Kylie might still be alive. Yet no one was held accountable. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss on any important updates.